that also. So यहाँ का part हम लोग छोटा cover करेंगे, ठीक है? उसको compensate करने के लिए, ये दोनों चीज करनी है अपने को next time. See, we are in the last leg of this unit, right? The one major chapter which is remaining for us to do is evolution, right? And one topic that we have to cover is frog also, because frog is the topic which has been mentioned in this year's new NCERT. So we'll have to cover that. You all have done with microbes, right?
Yes.
लेकिन वो second वाला chapter बचा है ना, enhancement. Yes. We will have to cover that, despite that chapter also has been deleted from the syllabus. So evolution के बाद जो deleted वाला part है वो हम लोग करेंगे, please. Yes, Kunal.
Sir, can you please explain again what is the meaning of endemism?
Endemism. Endemism मतलब if the animal or the plant species is located in the hotspot itself and not anywhere else. To explain it or in more simple terms, if you want. जब हम लोग goiter के बारे में पढ़ते हैं ना, तो goiter को हम लोग बोलते हैं it's an endemic goiter. राइट क्योंकि गोइटर अपने को सिर्फ हिली एरियाज में मिलता है. क्यों? क्योंकि हिली एरियाज में सॉइल इज डेफिशिएंट इन आयोडीन. सो इफ समथिंग इज लिमिटेड टू अ पर्टिकुलर एरिया, उसको हम लोग एंडेमिक बोलते हैं. थोड़ा और फैलता है तो एपिडेमिक बोलते हैं, और पूरे वर्ल्ड में गया तो पैंडेमिक बोलते हैं. ठीक है, ठीक है. वी विल स्टार्ट विद द चैप्टर ऑन इकोसिस्टम. Right from the start of this particular unit, we have been talking about biological hierarchy, which starts with organism, then goes to population, उसके बाद community, then ecosystem, right? Goes right up to biosphere. Organism and population we have already evaluated, and today we want to evaluate ecosystem. Again, a very small chapter, but a little bit on the conceptual side, not on the factual side. Biodiversity was more on factual data, factual side पे था, numbers ज़्यादा थे, examples थे. यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा concept ज़्यादा है. Okay. An ecosystem can be visualized as a functional unit of nature, where living organisms interact amongst themselves. Have we seen 6 types of interactions here? Right? Starting from mutualism, competition, predation, parasitism, commensalism, and also with the surrounding physical environment. Right? Between the organism and the physical environment की तरफ से we have temperature, water, soil and light. From the response side of the organism, we have regulation, conformation, migration and suspension. Right? So, in a nutshell, in one sentence, they have described the entire chapter, what we have done. Ecosystem varies greatly in size from a small pond to a large forest or a sea. That means ecosystem is not defined by its size. Ecosystem is defined by its components. तो इकोसिस्टम का जो स्ट्रक्चर है, स्ट्रक्चरल कंपोनेंट्स है, वो अगर एक छोटे से जगह में भी अवेलेबल है, तो इवन अ स्मॉल पॉन्ड कैन बी अ कंप्लीट इकोसिस्टम. सो यू डोंट नीड अ मेजरेबल एरिया बड़ा तो ही इकोसिस्टम होगा. Many of the ecologists, they regard the entire biosphere as a global ecosystem, as a composite of all local ecosystems. Composite मतलब sum total. Convenient to divide it into 2 basic categories, terrestrial and aquatic. Some examples of terrestrial: forests, grassland, desert ecosystems. Aquatic में pond, lake, wetland, rivers, estuary, estuary is brackish water. Crop fields, that is your agricultural fields, and aquariums are also examples, but they are man-made ecosystems. The man-made ecosystems are called as anthropogenic ecosystems. Anthropogenic ecosystems. In this particular chapter, we are looking at the structural components of an ecosystem. Now, herein, there are three things to be analyzed. सबसे पहले, input or productivity. For any ecosystem to function, obviously energy will be required. तो एक source of energy चाहिए उसको run करने के लिए. And that comes from productivity. Productivity is a term which we have encountered in the previous chapter also. I told you it's the photosynthetic output. This is called as productivity, measured in terms of biomass. ठीक है ना? So every ecosystem will have its own amount of productivity. Therein the plants are then taken up by the herbivores to carnivores. Right now, is this nothing but transfer of energy in the form of either food chain or food web? Every organism is either taken up by a higher trophic level organism, or if it dies, it is subjected to decomposition. और decomposition में क्या आ जाएगा तुम्हारा? Nutrient cycling. ठीक है? So your input, transfer of energy and the output, degradation and energy loss. Now, whenever you have, let's say for example, primary consumers being taken up by secondary consumers. So it is not as if the entire energy of primary will directly get transferred to secondary. No. Will the primary consumer itself utilize some amount of energy for itself? Yes. Then some amount of energy is lost by the body as heat also. Right? And then what remains is transferred to the next level. So degradation and energy loss. तो पूरा इकोसिस्टम का चेन अगर अपने को समझना है तो ये तीन चीजें बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. What is the input? How does transfer of energy take place? And what is the output? Okay. Now, identifying ecosystem का structure and function. Yes, Kabir.
Sir, anthropogenic was sixth evolution को भी बोल.
जो भी man-made है, cause is man तो anthropogenic आता है. Right? The sixth period of extinction में the accusing finger is pointing towards man-made activities. Man-made, बराबर ना? ठीक है. Now, in an ecosystem, the two components are biotic and abiotic. And these individual biotic and abiotic, they affect each other and their surrounding. Now, how these components, they are coming together in an integrated manner, how the flow of energy is taking place with these components also. Interaction of biotic and abiotic results in a physical structure that is characteristic for each type of an ecosystem. Now, when you look at two contrasting ecosystems like desert and rainforest, right? Do they have a typical physical structure?
Yes.
Wherein only by looking at you identify हाँ ये type का ecosystem है. And that is a result of interaction of biotic and abiotic. So the structure, characteristic structure is coming because of interaction of biotic and abiotic. In every ecosystem, identification and enumeration of plant and animal species, right? Because ecosystem चलेगा उसके अंदर जो plant और animals है उसकी वजह से. So identification of the species, enumeration counting, numbers. Vertical distribution of species occupying different levels is called stratification. Right? They have given a very simple example of plants. The taller ones are trees द मीडियम साइज आर श्रब्स, तो छोटा वाला आर हर्ब्स. तो जब आप इस तरह क्लासिफाई करते हो तो उसको हम लोग बोलते हैं स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन. हाँ, राइट, उसको स्ट्रैटिफिकेशन बोलते हैं. बट व्हेन यू डू इट हॉरिजॉन्टली, right, across a piece of land, if you do horizontal classification, it is called zonation. Make a note there. Vertical is called stratification. Horizontal distribution of species is zonation. So in a nutshell, this chapter has 4 points. सबसे पहला प्रोडक्टिविटी, मतलब आपका इनपुट आ गया, डीकंपोजिशन, आउटपुट आ गया, एंड तीसरा था एनर्जी ट्रांसफर, which is energy flow and nutrient cycling. Right? Nutrient cycling also you must have touched upon in school. The biogeochemical cycles, water cycle, oxygen cycle, nitrogen, carbon cycle. They are nothing but nutrient cycles. We have to do 2 nutrient cycles. One is carbon, one is phosphorus. Right? एक gaseous cycle, एक sedimentary cycle है. दोनों बहुत simple है. ठीक है? तो for today, we will take up these 2, and the next session will take up energy flow and nutrient cycle. चैप्टर अपना खत्म हो जाएगा उसके अंदर. राइट, तो सोच लो आपको एनवायरमेंटल भी 2 लेक्चर में खत्म करना है. राइट, दैट्स व्हाई मैंने इसको थोड़ा ज्यादा दिया है. ठीक है ना? द एनवायरमेंटल इश्यूज वाला चैप्टर, सी प्लीज, इट हैज बीन डिलीटेड फ्रॉम द सिलेबस. फ्रॉम द 6 चैप्टर्स दैट डिलीटेड, उसमें से एनवायरमेंटल इश्यूज है. राइट, दैट्स व्हाई आई हैव केप्ट इट फॉर रीडिंग. Nevertheless, anything which you are not able to assess and understand, we'll discuss this properly in the class, not leaving anything to chance. Water pollution में especially there are 2 or 3 terms or processes which need to be explained. Okay, but I wanted to go through that and then come back again, please. We will include questions from therein for the DCD also, so the seriousness remains, please. Otherwise, we all know what is happening. Chalo. Now, to understand the ethos of an aquatic system, let us take a small pond for an example. Right? We have to identify that in a pond, can a pond function as an ecosystem? Now, in a pond, we have to see every ecosystem has got 2 sections, abiotic and biotic. तो दोनों को आइडेंटिफाई कर लेते हैं कि abiotic क्या है और उसमें biotic क्या है. ठीक है? This is a fairly self-sustainable unit. इसको अंडरलाइन करो प्लीज. Self-sustainable unit. यानी जितना एनर्जी वो प्रोड्यूस करेगा उससे वो पूरा इकोसिस्टम चलेगा. मुझे एक्स्ट्रा एनर्जी डालने की, उसको बोलते हैं सेल्फ सस्टेनिंग. Okay, so first let us identify the abiotic composition of the pond. The abiotic component is the water, number 1, with all dissolved inorganic and organic substances and the rich soil deposit at the bottom of the pond. This is first part, abiotic. Then we have the environmental part, the solar input, the cycle of temperature, day का length. I hope you remember the term photoperiodism. ठीक है? Then other climatic conditions regulate the rate of function of the entire pond. So ये हो गया आपका पूरा abiotic. Right? So water with all dissolved organic, dissolved inorganic, all those substances, rich soil deposit at the bottom, solar, हाँ ये पूरा जितना सोलर इनपुट है, डे लेंथ साइकिल, ये एवरीथिंग कम्स अंडर एबायोटिक. बायोटिक, द ऑटोट्रोफिक कंपोनेंट्स इंक्लूड द फाइटोप्लैंक्टन, सम algae and the floating, submerged and marginal plants. Yes, कितने टाइप के प्लांट्स हैं? फ्लोटिंग, Submerged and marginal. Marginal is just found at the edge of the water. So they make up the producer component. The consumers are represented by the zooplankton. Right? We had already defined zooplankton. They are the herbivores of the aquatic system. The free swimming and bottom dwelling forms. The decomposers are the fungi, bacteria and flagellates, especially abundant in the bottom of the pond. The bottom area of the water body is called as the benthic zone. Right? Any water body का जो bottom वाला part है, it is called as benthic zone. The floating is called as the pelagic. Right ना? ये एनिमेलिया में टर्म आया था अपने को, pelagic. Okay. So decomposers are fungi, bacteria, flagellates. Now this system performs all the functions of an ecosystem as a whole. So what is happening first? Conversion of inorganic into organic with the help of radiant energy, that is photosynthesis. Consumption of autotrophs by heterotrophs, so transfer is occurring. Decomposition and mineralization of dead matter. So decomposition and nutrient cycling. Right? Mineralization of dead matter. मतलब dead matter में से the minerals coming back to the soil. And once they come back to the soil, who is going to reuse them again? The plants. There is unidirectional movement of energy. Obviously, the energy ka source is sun, and the energy which is used up does not go back to the sun. So it is a unidirectional movement of energy. Towards the higher trophic levels, please mark trophic levels. Right now, feeding levels are called trophic levels. Feeding levels, right now, so producer is a trophic level, primary consumer is a trophic level. Troph का मतलब होता है nutrition, autotroph, heterotroph. So troph means nutrition, feeding, food. So as I said, we will be looking only at two steps today: productivity and decomposition. Right? So सबसे पहला productivity. Yes, sir.
So, if it requires energy for photosynthesis from the sun, how is it fully self-sustainable?
Self-sustainable का मतलब होता है कि इतना एनर्जी में पूरा चलेगा वो, कोई और सोर्स की जरूरत नहीं उसको. A constant input of solar energy is the basic requirement for any ecosystem to function and sustain. Primary production. Please, now coming to productivity. Productivity में they will be talking of primary productivity and secondary productivity. The primary productivity is with respect to plants and secondary is with respect to animals. Let's check. Primary production is defined as the amount of biomass or organic matter produced, right? So photosynthesis से produce होगा glucose. The glucose is assimilated and stored in the form of starch, right? As the starch keeps on accumulating, what you say, क्या बढ़ रहा है? Biomass बढ़ रहा है उसका, and that is organic in nature. So organic matter produced per unit area over a time period. The moment time comes into picture, the word rate will come now. So is this now rate of biomass production? Because आपके पूरे definition में time आ गया अभी. It is expressed in terms of either weight or energy. Obviously, अगर ये एक measurable quantity है, तो उसके लिए यूनिट चाहिए अपने को. तो या तो उसको मेजर करेंगे इन टर्म्स ऑफ वेट. बायोमास कैन बी मेजर्ड इन टर्म्स ऑफ वेट और यू मेजर इट इन टर्म्स ऑफ एनर्जी. सो वंस यूनिट्स आर देयर, कैन यू कंपेयर द बायोमास और प्रोडक्टिविटी ऑफ टू डिफरेंट इकोसिस्टम्स?
Yes.
राइट. अब रिलेटिविटी आगे तो हाँ, सो डेजर्ट्स विल हैव लो प्रोडक्टिविटी, रेन फॉरेस्ट विल हैव हाई प्रोडक्टिविटी. बिकॉज ऑफ मेजरेबल टर्म्स आ गया अपने पास. द रेट, हाँ ये देखो आ गया रेट. द रेट ऑफ बायोमास प्रोडक्शन इज कॉल्ड प्रोडक्टिविटी. Right, so total photosynthetic output is nothing but productivity. Right, the same term which we came across in the previous chapter. Expressed in terms of grams per year, weight, or kilocals, right? So, or either in terms of weight or in terms of energy. Now, this is divided into gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. The total biomass manufactured is gross. अब ये टोटल जो मैन्युफैक्चर है वो पूरा का पूरा तो जाएगा नहीं हर्बीवोर को. प्लांट अपने प्रोसेसेस के लिए खुद यूज करेगा, राइट. उसको हम लोग डेजिग्नेट करते हैं एज आर और रेस्पिरेटरी लॉसेस. So GPP में से if you deduct R, you will be left with net primary productivity. So out of the gross, if you deduct the respiratory losses, what you have is the net primary. If that is the case, is it net primary productivity, the available biomass for the next level?
Yes.
So net primary productivity. Right, gross is the rate of production of organic matter, right. Net is the available biomass for consumption to heterotrophs. अब heterotrophs में उन्होंने दो चीजें दी है. देखो, हर्बीवोर भी हो सकता है और डिकम्पोजर. अगर खा रहा है तो हर्बीवोर, अगर डेथ के बाद डिकम्पोजिशन हो रहा है तो डिकम्पोजर. इट कुड बी गोइंग टू एनीबॉडी. ना हाँ, हर लेवल पे डिकम्पोजिशन हर लेवल पे हो सकता है. अब the herbivore has taken up the primary, पूरा ले लिया, NPP पूरा कंज्यूम कर दिया. Now will the herbivore undergo the process of digestion?
Yeah.
That means जो starch consume किया है वो starch will be acted upon by amylases.
Yeah.
It will start breaking down into polysaccharide का disaccharide, disaccharide का mono, फिर से ग्लूकोज आ जाएगा.
Yeah.
अब इस ग्लूकोज का फिर से यूजेज होगा फॉर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एटीपी.
Yeah.
मेटाबॉलिज्म में जाएगा, माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया में जाएगा, और जो बच जाएगा will that be accumulated in the muscles in the liver in the form of glycogen? Will that be a new thing manufactured now?
Yes.
That is called secondary productivity. मतलब एनपीपी को लिया, उसको यूज किया, और जो बच गया उसका एक नया फॉर्म बनाया. Secondary productivity is defined as the rate, मतलब ये भी टाइम पीरियड के हिसाब से, of formation of new organic matter. स्टार्च का क्या बन गया अभी? ग्लाइकोजन बन गया by consumers now. Are we clear what is primary and what is secondary? So primary is done by plants and secondary is done by animals. And primary के अंदर we have GPP and NPP. अर्नब.
Sir, NPP is starch, right?
हाँ?
NPP is the starch.
हाँ हाँ, ठीक है ना. So NPP will be the mass or available for the herbivores, the next level. So are these all terms very clear? पलक बराबर क्लियर हुआ. GPP क्या है, R क्या है, NPP क्या है, प्राइमरी प्रोडक्टिविटी क्या है, सेकेंडरी प्रोडक्टिविटी क्या है. ठीक है. सबसे बड़ा मिस्टेक जो स्टूडेंट्स का होता है, दे टेंड टू फॉरगेट दैट ये रेट है. ये रेट वाला वर्ड जो है ना वो मिस कर जाते हैं लोग. यानी इट इज कंपेयर्ड फॉर अ टाइम पीरियड. In the previous chapter, did we have that productivity will not vary from year to year? हाँ, मतलब एक साल का प्रोडक्टिव मेजर करोगे तो रेट आ गया ना. मतलब एक साल में रेट कितना था, सेकेंड ईयर में रेट कितना, उसको कंपेयर करेंगे, उसमें वेरिएशन नहीं आना चाहिए. तब जाके वो इकोसिस्टम स्टेबल है. कंडीशन फॉर स्टेबिलिटी था.
Yeah.
ठीक है. Okay. Now, having identified what are the different aspects of productivity, what does productivity depend on? Productivity depends on plants, obviously, plant species, which are inhabiting in a particular area. Will that also be influenced by diversity of the species?
Yes.
Did we do that? जितना species का diversity ज़्यादा रहेगा, उतना productivity ज़्यादा रहेगा. Also depends on a variety of environmental factors, availability of nutrients in the soil, and photosynthetic capacity of the plant. Different plants have different photosynthetic capacities. The taller trees have a major portion of sunlight. पढ़ा था हम लोग ना? They have a larger canopy. So light is blocked for the lower plants. So they have to optimize their processes. So does that create a difference in the capacity of photosynthesis of different plants?
Yes.
Or do we have photosynthetically different types of plants? Do we have C3 plants? C4 plants? Do we have CAM plants in deserts? Right? Have you studied the difference in the efficiency of these processes? C4 is definitely a more efficient process, but a more expensive one. उसको ATP और NADH2 ज़्यादा लगता है उसके लिए. The annual net primary productivity of whole biosphere. Please यहाँ पर आप इसको लिख दो. Annual NPP. ये skip करते हैं लोग. GPP नहीं है. तो GPP देगा तो ये sentence क्या हो जाएगा? False हो जाएगा. Annual NPP value of the whole biosphere is 170 billion tons of biomass, dry weight, organic matter. And ये annual NPP 170 billion tons में water component is 55 and land का productivity is 115. Right, out productivity of oceans is only 55 billion tons. So land will be obviously 115. यहाँ पे एक छोटा सा उन्होंने पॉइंट ऐड किया है कि डिस्पाइट ऑक्यूपाइंग 70% ऑफ द सरफेस, ओशंस फिर भी सिर्फ 55 है. Is water occupying almost 2/3 of the surface area of Earth? Yes. Despite that, Krishna, why do you think so? Why do you think that of 70% का surface area फिर भी 55 billion tons? Usable water, नहीं, something better, Krishna. Pandya, what do you feel? Plants. Daksh. Sunlight, very good. The amount of penetration of sunlight is only up to a point. Did we do the red algae? मतलब लास्ट पॉइंट पे आपका रेड algae है वहां पर, उसके आगे सनलाइट जाएगा नहीं. नहीं, तो सनलाइट एक पॉइंट तक जाएगा, तो जहां तक जाएगा फोटोसिंथेसिस वहां तक ही होगा, तो प्रोडक्टिविटी इसका लिमिटेड हो जाएगा. और लैंड पे इट इज रीचेबल एवरीवेयर, सो प्रोडक्टिविटी लैंड गोइंग टू बी हायर. सो पॉइंट नंबर 1, प्रोडक्टिविटी. राइट, सो पहले हाफ में प्रोडक्टिविटी के टाइप्स को आइडेंटिफाई किया हमने, प्राइमरी, सेकेंडरी. प्राइमरी में जीपीपी, एनपीपी एंड आर. सो जीपीपी माइनस आर इज इक्वल टू एनपीपी. अंडरस्टूड कंप्लीटली. राइट, एनपीपी जो एंड में आया, इट इज द अवेलेबल बायोमास फॉर नेक्स्ट लेवल. राइट, उसको यूज करके जो नया फॉर्म मैन्युफैक्चर होगा, दैट विल बी सेकेंडरी प्रोडक्टिविटी. सो प्राइमरी डन बाय प्लांट्स and secondary done by animals. Right? And what is the factor on which the productivity is going to depend on, and what are the values for biosphere ka annual NPP? NPP, not GPP. NPP value है, usable. Okay. Coming to point number 2, decomposition. Right? अब इसका output, ये input हो गया, अब output अभी. Yes. To discuss the output, we will have to go back to standard 3. Earthworm is friend of farmer. बराबर ना? पता नहीं कितने ऐसे लिख दिए इसमें तो. ठीक है? of my younger friends ना, just visiting him, तो उसका बेटा छोटा है, right, 4th 5th में, तो उसके फादर के पास ऐसे लिख के आया, मैं डैड ऐसे लिखा तो ये लिखा ऐसे, तो मैंने लिखा तो कोई रैंडम टॉपिक था कुछ तो फेस्टिवल्स और समथिंग लाइक दैट, and it was beautifully worded. I was impressed, actually impressed that 5th standard का 6th standard का बच्चा ये लैंग्वेज लिख सकता है. तो मैं बोला यार कौन से स्कूल में है, तो कोई तो रैंडम कोई तो, मैंने फिर बट इट्स वेरी गुड यार. हाउ डिड यू राइट दिस? चैट जीपीटी. मैं बोला दिस जनरेशन इज गोइंग फॉर अ टॉस यार, दिस जनरेशन इज डेड नाउ. Write an essay on festivals of India. चलो. Yes. Please. So, we do know about the role of the earthworm vis-a-vis agriculture. The earthworm, the digestive system of the earthworm, unfortunately, we've not done that. When we did cockroach, did we come across a structure called as gizzard? Yes. तो earthworm में भी gizzard है. It is acting like a bioreactor. और वहाँ पर grinding भी है और enzymatic action भी है. Okay. Now the grinding action, the tough soil which is taken up by the earthworm, it is loosened up, and the enzymatic action की वजह से the organic gets converted to inorganic. Right? So there is breakdown of soil. और यही पूरा digestive system के through बाहर निकलता है. तो is it nothing but the feces of the earthworm, which is used as manure, which we call as vermicompost. उसको हम लोग vermi, so rearing of earthworms today is called as vermiculture, and that is a properly developed business as such. That vermicompost is sold outside because it is rich in manure. ऐसा. So अब the role which is played, it helps in breakdown of complex organic matter as well as in loosening of the soil. Now, decomposer में you can have various factors like bacteria also, fungi also, and all the ones which help in breakdown. They break down complex organic into simple inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, nutrients, and this process is decomposition. Now, the steps in decomposition. यहाँ पर थोड़ा सा with a little bit of warning we proceed ahead. 5 steps have been described in decomposition. Fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification and mineralization. Right? यहाँ पर we will take up step by step ये पांचों प्रोसेसेस कैसे होते हैं और क्या एनसीईआरटी ने इसको ये सीक्वेंस में देख के सही बताया है या नहीं बताया अपने को. वी हैव टू असेस दैट प्लीज. मतलब यहाँ पे कुछ तो गड़बड़ उन्होंने किया है. ओके, ठीक. नाउ ऑन द सरफेस ऑफ द सॉइल और मे बी जस्ट बिलो द सॉइल देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ एनिमल एंड प्लांट रिमेन्स, डेड रिमेन्स. So you can have something like dead leaves, the bark of a tree, right? The decomposed fruits, all those are dead remains, right? The bones of animal, the excreta of animals, these are all animal and plant remains. All of them, do we have organic matter trapped in that?
Yes.
A leaf will have starch trapped in that, right? So all that collectively, ये जो प्लांट एंड एनिमल रिमेन है उसको हम लोग कलेक्टिवली बोलते हैं डेट्रिटस. डेट्रिटस. सो डेट्रिटस इज द रॉ मटेरियल फॉर डिकम्पोजिशन. डिकम्पोज ये चीज होती है सब. द डेड पार्ट्स ऑफ प्लांट, द डेड पार्ट्स ऑफ एनिमल्स, राइट? एनिमल का डेड बॉडी रहेगा, छोटा सा एनिमल रहेगा, राइट? दिस इज ऑल रॉ मटेरियल फॉर डिकम्पोजिशन. एंड द एनिमल्स which break down detritus are called detrivores. So earthworm is a detrivore. Earthworm is a detrivore. So the point starts from breakdown of detritus. ये जितना भी कचरा अवेलेबल है इसको कलेक्टिवली क्या टर्म यूज करते हैं हम लोग? डेट्रिटस. See, in the next lecture, right, we'll be talking about food chain and food web. Right? The food chain that we know is only one. Grass, grasshopper, till eagle. Right? सबसे खराब कौन है? Eagle. ठीक है? Whatever the case. ठीक है ना? Now we always have thought of food chain starting with the producer. Right? Now food chain, if it starts with the producer, it is actually called as a grazing food chain. Plant हो, tree हो, right? ना कोई भी producer से start होती है तो उसको grazing food chain बोलते हैं हम लोग. But if a earthworm is taking up detritus, is the food chain starting with detritus ना? So in that case it is called as a detritus food chain.